Hi, welcome back to the channel and another top 10 video for you today. I'm going to be giving you my top 10 favourite A24 movies. So this is a film production company which is of course known for having a very distinct style about them. They have their go-to genres and directors and styles that they love to work with, and they produce these films that have a very particular flavour so that once you've seen it you know it came from A24, and I love that about them. I appreciate these films don't work for everyone. They are a little bit art house and quirky and weird, and not all of them have worked, but I think for the most part they produce a lot of really interesting films. So highly recommend every single movie on this list to those of you who have not seen them before. But anyway, please do let me know, guys, down in the comments what you think of my choices, and do let me know what your favourite A24 films are too. And if you're wondering, no, Death of a Unicorn is not going to be on this list. I was not particularly impressed with it, sadly. Definitely one of the more disappointing A24 releases we've had. I thought it was okay, it was watchable, but nowhere near the same calibre of movies we're going to be getting into here. So starting at number 10, I've got Killing of a Sacred Deer, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, which came out back in 2017. And I'd argue from his entire filmography, if this is not the strangest, it's definitely the most disturbing. And that's definitely saying something if you are familiar with this guy's work. Definitely not for everyone. His films, they do have a particular style about them, and it takes a bit of time to get on board with them, but I think of all of his films, this one is the clear standout to me. It's something about this mysterious and unusual story which I just found more intriguing than the other films he's done. I think the performances as well maybe is what has kind of stuck with me so much and made it more powerful, especially Barry Keoghan. Like, he's risen, of course, to more prominence in recent years with stuff like Saltburn. A lot of people know about him now. But back here in Sacred Deer, he wasn't quite as well known, and I thought his performance was just absolutely outstanding. You know, he's amazing at playing somebody who can be sympathetic whilst also being really creepy at the same time. And it's just the whole nature of not understanding the motivation of his actions and what he's really about, which just gives this whole film this really amazing sense of dread, which will just keep you gripped all the way through it. So yeah, it's a very unpredictable film, you know, in terms of the dialogue, the story directions. You'll have no idea where this thing is going. But for sure, this has got A24 stamp all over it. Definitely one of their strongest releases, and as I say, probably my favourite film directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. At number 9, I've got Room from 2015, which was starring Brie Larson. And I love to highlight this film whenever I can because poor Brie Larson, in the last few years, she's been given a very hard time for her portrayal in the media and some of the roles she's decided to take, which, you know, debatably maybe didn't play up to her best strengths as an actress. But if you go back to something like Room, she is absolutely phenomenal in this, and just give an incredibly convincing performance, showing this kind of character going through insane trauma. I thought she was just amazing. It just made for an extremely powerful film, I thought. And this came out about the time that on the streaming services there were a lot of those kidnapping stories, disappearances, and that's what this, I think this film may have even been directly based on one of those books, but it's about a long-term kidnapping, not just the actual kidnapping itself, but kind of living through that, the escape, and then trying to reintegrate with society and your family afterwards, and how that even when you make it to freedom, there's going to be a lot of trouble and trauma and problems you bring with you, and that kind of inner turmoil that can cause in a family. It's absolutely devastating to watch at times and heart-wrenching, but it is quite an astonishing movie. It's one of those you only really need to see once, I think. I saw it, 10 years ago now when it came out. But even to this day, it's left a real mark for me. Number 8, I've got Raw. So this was from 2016 and is a French extremist horror film directed by Julia Ducournau. When is this director going to give us a third movie? Because I have loved both this and Titan. Absolutely wild film. Something about the French and their horror films, they're on another level. I think it's something strange about seeing such disturbing horror movies made with such a high level of quality, and no one else does it, I don't think, at the moment like this director. You got a lot of attention for your modern extreme horror like Terrifier and stuff, but it's just not on the same level, I don't think, as something like Raw. This movie, I mean, how to even describe it, it's almost like a coming of age story. It's young people discovering themselves, going off to uni or veterinary school, I think in this case, and basically that intertwined with a cannibal story. So it's very twisted, very disturbing kind of themes and ideas, and you will not be able to take your eyes off the screen. But I just think this movie is beautifully directed, so well acted, very intriguing, very gripping. Only for the most hardcore horror fans, mind you. I think it would even be higher up on this list if it weren't for the fact that I don't think the third act is quite as strong as the start. Or rather, not that it's not as strong, but I really felt like it was leading to something massive, because the first half of this film is just perfection. And then in the second half, it loses a little bit of steam, I think. But overall, still, if you're into this kind of more extreme style horror, especially from the French, you are going to love Raw. Next, I've got Green Room from 2016. This was a drama horror, I guess would be best described as, and is effectively a survival movie about a punk rock band who are touring the country, getting quite desperate for money, and end up taking a gig at a venue hosted by a group of neo-Nazis. And something bad goes down, they get locked in a room, and they're unable to leave because they've effectively seen too much of this particular event that's happened, and they're not allowed to leave, and they need to basically make the decision: are these guys going to quietly kill us and dispose of us, or do we need to make our move now? This is such a tight and tense movie. It's just 90 minutes of pure adrenaline. And just, the tension that is built throughout this movie as you're following this group and their situation is just amazing, I think. Again, it's another one, like a lot of other A24 films on this list. It's extremely dark and brutal, but I just think they do a great job of making you really feel like you're in this situation with those characters. And it is quite a nice slow burn as well. Like, things really escalate and get explosive in that second half, but it's the whole build up leading up to it, so you're so ready. And then when everything goes down, it's just pure chaos for the final 40 minutes. Standout performances here too. Anton Yelchin gave his last really brilliant performance here, because sadly he died at such a young age. I think he was only like in his mid or late 20s back when he made this film, and he died shortly after, which was really sad. But he left on a great note in acting, because he did an amazing job in this film. And I think the whole thing leads up to a really nice, satisfying, bittersweet ending too. Number 7 for me is Talk to Me, and any of you familiar with me on the channel will know I'm a huge fan of this film. It was my number 1 horror movie from 2023 when it came out. There's something so great about the fact that this was an independent film made by YouTubers, just playing at, I think, a one-off Australian Film Festival, and A24 saw this and thought, yep, we'll have a bit of that and distribute this worldwide. And thankfully everybody got to see it, and it made an absolute killing, which is just brilliant, because this movie is absolutely fantastic and one of the big standouts, I think, in modern horror. And that's what I actually love about it as well, is the fact that it kind of embraces being a modern horror film with a modern style, because a lot of movies I feel like that are praised now, it's often where they're kind of harking back to an old version style, kind of paying homage to older era movies. And a lot of the more modern ones get criticised for being too modern, full of Gen Z characters, all this kind of stuff. But I think Talk to Me is doing all of these modern things, but it just shows you how to do it well. That's going to connect with people. It's well directed. They've got great actors for it. And they created a genuinely intense and scary horror movie movie. And yeah, they just did an amazing job with this. It's so tight. I think it only runs at like 90 minutes. It just goes by in a flash. And I think I've probably seen this 3 or 4 times now. But it's a fantastic horror movie. It's a highly recommended if you've never seen this one before. And yeah, one of the big standouts in horror from A24. At number 5, I've got Uncut Gems from the Safdie brothers, which came out back in 2019. Movies like this make me wish that Adam Sandler had spent more of his career doing serious roles, because when he gets outside of his comfort zone of doing silly voices and slapstick humour, he did roles like this, and he was absolutely incredible in them, and I love to see that. This, and I also saw Punch Drunk Love recently, and that again just had me thinking about this, like, please, Adam Sandler, do more movies like this. But Uncut Gems, just one of the best. Really fantastic drama. One that is only for people that can handle being overwhelmed with anxiety and stress for 2 solid hours, because this movie is basically about a guy who is in too deep with the wrong people, takes too many risks in his life, and all of these problems and mistakes are slowly starting to catch up with him, and all of the toxic things about his personality are about to come back to bite him, and you're slowly watching this unravel throughout the story. But it's absolutely gripping, and I think the thing about this movie which makes it so interesting to watch is just the chaotic, high-paced style of it. So it's really in your face. It's all happening at once. People are talking over each other. And I think that's what just really creates this atmosphere where you feel stressed with the character. You know, you're finding it almost unbearable to see what he's got to deal with next, as he's taking another 10 phone calls. He's got people on him. He's got people chasing after him. It's all just so much, and it all leads up to this very explosive ending. I don't know if I want to say it's a joy to watch, but definitely left a mark with me, this one. I remember sitting in bed watching this, and my health Garmin was sitting there flashing like, are you on a run night now? Are you having a heart attack or something? And no, I was just watching Uncut Gems. It's that stressful. But yeah, if you like those kind of movies, highly recommended. It's a real standout. 4, I've got Annihilation from Alex Garland. We're going to be talking about a lot of Alex Garland probably in the upcoming months, given we've got 28 Years Later coming up soon. Huge fan of him as a writer and director. Annihilation's a really interesting one because it took me a couple of watches to really get on board with this film. It's definitely not a perfect film. I think it is flawed in a number of ways, but it's all about the experience and the atmosphere with this one. A lot of it's not so much messaging, but if the things you take from this story are kind of down to interpretation. It's not one of those movies that gives you clear-cut answers. But in terms of just an experience of following this group of women going into the unknown, you know, dealing with this strange anomaly of nature or a potential alien invasion, and just venturing in with them and going through this. It's quite a hell of a film, it really is. I think it's genuinely quite scary and unnerving in parts. A few scenes in particular where they first discover the videotapes and she finds Oscar Isaac and what he's been doing whilst he's been in the shimmer, I thought was really quite disturbing. And just some other images as well, I think, that will really stick with you. But it's a very dreamlike film, and I think, like with a lot of Alex Garland's work, they always give you a lot of things to think about. A lot of different interesting themes and ideas being tackled here. This is definitely probably his most experimental film that he's worked on, I would say, which is why I can understand why some people don't entirely gel with it, but it's quite a powerful film. I've seen it 3 times now, and every single time I watch this, I get more and more from it. But yeah, for me, it's just an absolutely fascinating sci-fi movie, and definitely one of the best sci-fi films we had in the 2010s. Number 3, we've got Hereditary, another film that you've probably heard me talk about on the channel because, yes, I am a little bit of a Ari Aster fanboy. I do highly praise his work because I think it just really deserves it. And I remember back when this came out in 2018, and I think because it made such a huge splash in 2018, this in horror, this was the time I kind of remembered getting really excited about horror again, in particular, like actively going out, keeping up with the news, checking out new movies again. And it was all because of Hereditary, because it's just such a powerful horror film, so well directed. The thing about him is he really knows how to tackle into trauma and grief and connect a real life family drama to a horror story. And that's what loads of horror films are missing, I think, where it's all, the story revolves around the jump scares. It's almost like they've made a fun house where all the scares, the jumps, the ghosts, all that kind of stuff, and then you build characters and write everything else around that. Whereas Ari Aster does the opposite. He really delves deep, gets into the heart of what these characters are going through, what their story is, and then brings a horror background to it all to make it all the more horrifying and nightmarish. And that's what I think he expertly did in Hereditary. And yeah, some people say it's a film of two halves as well, where it goes off the rails in the second half, but I don't agree with that. You know, if you don't like the style of horror, it's still a supernatural horror film at the end of the day. So if you don't like that, fair enough. But I think the two complement each other nicely, and the second half is made so much better because of the stakes that have been raised in the first. But I think this is an absolute horror masterpiece and is a must own in any horror movie fan's collection. And yes, at number 2, more Ari Aster here. We've got Midsommar from the next year in 2019. And I just think this film, like Hereditary, is a masterpiece. It is a modern day remake, effectively, of The Wicker Man. But I just think it goes a lot deeper than that film, especially in terms of how it builds up the characters, the reasons why they're there, especially the character of Danny, played by Florence Pugh, and her kind of emotional trauma and how that's intertwined with the whole story of this cult they're getting involved with. It's just amazingly done. It's horrifying, it's disturbing, and it's a movie that will always stay with you. The thing that frustrates me so much around the online discourse of Midsommar is I remember when it came out, there was lots of viral reviews basically claiming or implying that the ending, the film was basically trying to get us to side with the character of Danny and feel like she was justified in her actions at the end towards Christian, which I think is just absolutely preposterous. And it's so indicative of the days we live in with messaging in movies and stuff, that people are so aware of it, they're seeing things and projecting ideas where they're not there. Like, there's no way that Ari Aster would have tarnished his own work by kind of forcibly putting in a message there. If you go back and watch this movie again, like if you're somebody who did feel like that was the message, go back and watch it again as a movie that is about a girl who's gone through severe emotional trauma and watching how cults prey on people who are vulnerable, and they are the sort of people who get pulled into their way of life and get brainwashed by these types of people, and the whole thing makes a lot more sense, I promise you. So yeah, I highly disagree with all of the criticism around Midsommar. It is a long movie, I grant you. The director's cut maybe is a tad long, but in general I think this is almost destined to become an underrated film because of how much hate this has got. But yeah, not in that camp on this one. I think this is an absolute masterpiece. And number 1, currently my favourite A24 release, we've got Ex Machina from Alex Garland back in 2014. Something about that guy's mind, it just resonates with me. The kind of themes and ideas he loves to inject into his stories just really work with me. And I think he just manages to tackle into some hard truths about life, humanity, AI, the future, all of these kind of things which a lot of people are unwilling to admit, unwilling to discuss, I don't know, but these films do a great job of tackling those themes, and Ex Machina is one of them. Of course, we have had a lot of movies dealing with the subject of AI, the dark side of AI potentially replacing us, getting out of control. But I think this is definitely the standout one, certainly of the 21st century, I would say. And it's just a very confined location film, 3 or 4 actors all put into this situation of testing this AI to decide whether or not it's conscious, and watching how this very manipulative relationship between the 3 of them plays out. It is an absolutely fascinating movie. It's a great drama. And the dialogue in particular, I think, is what really makes this stand out. Every single conversation is interesting. It makes you want to dig deeper into it. You want to go back and work out what they really meant with certain elements. And the whole thing just has such a fantastic atmosphere to it that it's a movie that I just go back to so many times. I always want to revisit this one. Absolute masterpiece, in my opinion, of science fiction. One of my favourite movies of all time as well. So if you're a fan of the genre and you haven't seen Ex Machina, please check it out. But that is definitely the #1 A24 release for me. So anyway, guys, hope you've enjoyed my list of my top 10 picks for my favourite A24 movies. Do let me know down in the comments section what you think of my list and also what your favourites are. So until next time, do take care, and I'll see you soon.